So it is time to preserve this harvest that is taking over my table. And this is only just the beginning. So this week I'm going to bring you along for all the different ways I'm going to be preserving these produce and also some beef as well. I will leave links in the description box below of all the resources that I'm using and referencing, and I'll explain more as I go.
But first, a clean workspace.
Okay, so let's get started.
So I'm going to start by sterilizing my jars, and you can do this in the dishwasher, but mine is old and sounds like a rocket ship, so I will spare your ears. I also threw on an extra pot to sterilize the lids.
So while those jars are sterilizing, I'm going to go ahead and get started on something else. So I'm going to start with canning ground beef today. I'm following the instructions straight out of my canner manual for how to cook up this beef and then also can it. So for this beef, I'm going to do a hot pack, which means basically you just cook it up a little bit beforehand and then you put it in the jars while it's still hot and then seal it. Even though this is my first time doing it, you know, go big or go home. So I'm going to do several pounds of ground beef and I'm going to cook it all up in my big roaster pan so that way I don't take up more space on the stove.
I should clarify, this is my first time canning meat, not my first time canning in general. Next up, it is time to fill the jars. Next, I'm going to strain most of the fat off of the beef and then pack it in to where there is 1 inch of headspace left at the top of the jars. Once the jars are filled with the beef and the water, it's time to get out all of the bubbles, clean the rims, and then it's time to put on the lids.
So while we're waiting on this to steam, I got a happy mail. We'll get to that in just a little bit, so stay tuned for that.
Extra beef went into the freezer.
Okay, so I'm gonna run the food meal along with some jars through the dishwasher for sterilizing. After that, it's gonna be time to figure out what to do with all this produce on the table. And in the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead and wipe down and label the jars that we've already canned.
Next up on the agenda, it's time to tackle the produce. So I'm going to start with what's going in the freezer first. These jalapenos are going in the freezer until my next round of tomatoes comes in, and I'm going to make some salsa. And saving the scraps for the compost. And now time for squash. Now I do think I let this squash get a little too big. From what I've read, young and tender usually cooks up better, but we're still going to try it anyway. And I'm keeping a pile of seeds over to the side. And here, I'm going to try and save them for next year.